All right, we are back, and it is Monday night, traveling again. This episode is brought to you from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. um, Out here for a family office conference. There's a group that we are working on doing some business with, Copper Beach. I think they're up there in Pittsburgh. Good group, but they've got us here at a nice hotel here in Baton Rouge. For a conference that they're putting on. I'll be speaking tomorrow, so excited about that. Should be a good time. Lots of family offices. So, I want to start on this. I have met so many cool people that are extremely wealthy that you would never know. You met them on the street. They would seem like just your regular person, down to earth, talk to you just like they're not better than anybody else. Many of them, are first generation. Some of them are multiple, generations later. And they have, all the stuff that we help people set up with family constitution, ethics documents, all that stuff. But it's wild to me the ways that people make their money. Many of you watching here probably invested in digital assets. Maybe you do have a business that you operate on a daily basis. Maybe you're an executive. Maybe you're just blue collar worker and you're looking for a better life and you want to be able to make this investment turn into something that you're able to create a family office and a legacy from. But what's cool is, just like the boring stuff that people make money from. One of the families here, they grow the cucumbers that are used on all of the hamburgers for McDonald's, Burger King, and a lot of other large fast food places, right? Like, who'd have thought that you'd become, centimillionaire, billionaire off of a pickle farm? Other families that I've talked to, they started a company that makes just things that you use on a daily basis, whether that's, coffee cups or, a plumbing part, or many other things that you don't really think about. One of the people I was talking to that's here built a company in the medical space for insurance where they underwrote the claims, and if you used a copay card, they were probably one of the 5 companies that processed that insurance payout, right? So, everybody has their expertise in different stuff. Whatever that means for you, you have a very deep understanding of whatever industry you've worked in for a long time. And you could probably create a solution or solve a problem for everybody in that industry. And that's what these people have done, right? And again, they're cool people. They're down to earth. They're not egotistical. They'll sit and have a conversation with you about football or whatever else you got going on in your life. And that was a paradigm that I had early on around wealthy people that, I thought that they had to be. This is, again, passed on to me from my father. My father always told me, you had to do something nefarious or like hurt other people, or, it was kind of a zero-sum game. Like other people had to lose money in order for you to make money. That is not true. Growing up, I heard all the time that money didn't grow on trees. Effectively, it kind of does. Like they print more and more of it every single day. And it's an abundant resource. It is out there everywhere. And, you work a 9 to 5, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Creating value in somebody else's company or doing something that gives you fulfillment, and sometimes you're just doing that until you figure out what it is for you, that you can then, create more value in society, or it's your ends to a mean or means to an end that you can, take that money, pay your bills, and then whatever's left as discretionary income, you can invest that into something that you believe in that's going to grow and be able to, change your life or change other people's lives. So anyway, I wanted to start there tonight just because, again, being here, having the conversations that I'm having, I like to share little things like that with people just to kind of break those paradigms. Again, kind of speaking to myself, things that I thought were true earlier in my life that just are not true. And I want to give a special shout out to Hal. If he's watching this, I'm sure that he is. You know why. I won't tell everybody on the internet why I'm giving you a shout out, but I just want to say thank you for the kind gesture. I do have one super chat that we missed from last week that I'll run down when we get to that. I'll start with the macro, all the fun stuff that you guys come here for. So if you just want the skinny on where things are at and where we're going before we get into all the questions, you can watch that and then hop over. But if you wouldn't mind, please like, subscribe, share. It does help the algorithm, helps the channels, gets this information out to other people. And if you do find it valuable and you think it would be valuable for somebody else, I would love it if you would share it with them. So let's jump into the macro. Things are heating up here. I went over a lot of this in the mastermind earlier today, so I kind of keep it light, tight, and bright for you guys here publicly. But, we got oil in priced in yen, rising again, oil in dollars. I don't know if you guys have been to the pump here lately. I filled up actually yesterday, and oil in Texas is pretty abundant. We normally don't see the same type of inflation in our gas prices that you see across the nation when there is a big move in oil. But gas is up over $4 for just regular gas here in Texas. Well, I'm in Louisiana right now, but when I was in Texas, that's unusual. Normally not that case. $3 high $3. We see that occasionally. But for to be up over 4 consistently, that's not good. So it is affecting people. We got $5 plus in Michigan. Many people, across the U.S. when I talked about the mastermind earlier this morning, were $5, $6, $7, $8 in some places. That's a lot for gas. Luckily, maybe gas versus as diesel. My wife drives the diesel truck and hauls the horses, and she was cussing the gas prices when she had to fill up the other day. So I know people are feeling it out there. Definitely see inflation across the economy. You'll see it in gas first, and then you'll see it in other prices and goods as the shipping continues to cost more. This is a byproduct of the war with Iran. Any reason that they can to raise gas prices, they're going to use it. It's actually pretty profitable right now to run a gas station. There for a while, it was actually, you weren't making a whole lot on the gas. You got to make money on the convenience store and all the other stuff that you sell, which those prices haven't gone down either. I go get me an energy drink almost every day, and those aren't coming down, and everything else seems to be going up too. So I know people are hurting out there. It's definitely probably eating into, if you're on a fixed income, you haven't had a raise in a little while, you might go ask for it. It never hurts to ask. The worst answer is no. We're doing our quarterly reviews for our employees. Passed out a couple raises for those that are doing really good work. I believe in that. You want to continue to incentivize people and continue to help them along in their career, and the ones that are putting forth a lot of effort, they should be rewarded for that. There's been lots of times in my career. I'll give you an example. So when I was working at Fastenal years ago, I was doing pretty well, was growing my accounts. I thought, doing a good job. And I'm putting in a lot of extra effort, extra hours, working on the weekends, trying to, do other stuff. And I went to my boss at the time and I said, hey, I'd like a raise. I feel like I'm creating a lot of value here. And he said, if you want to make more money, you got to go sell more. And I was like, cool. I stopped doing all the extra effort after that. So, just things like that. I don't know where you work. There's all kinds of people watching this, and we'll watch it later on. But, the world's not the way it used to be. You used to work somewhere for, 10, 20, 30 years, have a pension, get raises on a regular basis. That world's gone. And if you are an A player or even a B player, and you're doing really good work and you're creating a lot of value for an organization, you should be compensated well. And if they tell you no, or for whatever reason can't, um, most people, Cody Sanchez talks about this. She looked for a new job every 2 years, and I know that's a lot of change and it's scary. And a lot of people, don't do it for that reason. They don't want to rock the boat or cause problems or any of that. But if you are creating value in the marketplace and you are doing a good job at whatever you're doing, you should be seeking, higher compensation, especially with the inflation that's out there right now. And if you're not somebody that's, kicking ass and taking names and, providing a lot of value to the organization, start that, right? I read a book. I'd have to look it up on my phone here. But it's one of the first books that I read about, kind of the woo-woo stuff. Basically, you want to operate in a certain way, is what they said in the book, and that just means going above and beyond at whatever you're doing. And if you do that on a consistent basis, your income will change. If you're creating more value in the marketplace, if you are becoming irreplaceable, you will have better income. And that's worked for me, and I know it's worked for everybody else that I've talked to here tonight. For them to be able to get into a position where they are making a substantial amount of income and can create a legacy for their family. So we'll start there tonight. But back to the oil and the macro. With Japan intervening 5 times in the currency market now, I think they're only allotted like 6 times in a matter of 6 months, 9 times per year that they can intervene in the currency market before the IMF will come in and help them along with things. And I don't think that they want that there in Japan. You had Yoshitaka Kitao come out and say that, they are going to be using XRP in their financial system, have been trialing it for a long time. And they're looking forward to the U.S., passing the Clarity Act so that the banks and institutions can get on board with that. We did have that, the markup passed last week at a 15-9 vote. They did strike a lot of the red lines that the Democrats had in there out of the bill. So I don't know that they're going to get the additional support that they need in the Senate to get that across the line. That's supposed to be up for vote in the next 30 days here. So that would put it mid-June when we saw that. We also have the Texas Stock Exchange going live. Target date somewhere between July 2nd and the 17th. They will be settling through the DTCC just like everybody else does. I don't know that they're going to be launching tokenized. We do have some pilot programs and the first tokenization happening in July of this year with full-blown implementation in October. So that's for NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, and many of the other large exchanges out there. So we will have to see, where that leaves the market at the time. I think things are going to get frothy toward the end of this year for crypto, for the assets that are still around. I think there's going to be a huge consolidation, either through the regulation or through Tether and the implications we're going to see there when the reverse carry trade unwinds. For me, I believe that the first implementation that we're going to see for distributed ledger technology is going to be on the back end settlement component and reconciliation of the stock market with the DTCC. That's not me saying that. That's the president of NASDAQ talking to Monica Long last year at Swell. That's who said that. So it is my opinion, all of that we're going to see that as the first place where all of this is used. And for that to happen, XRP has to be a very high price. 3-4 digits, somewhere between $500 and $5,000 at a minimum, just to be able to facilitate the back end settlement of the stock market. That's $4 quadrillion a year that gets settled through the back end of the stock market in the DTCC. That's a lot of money. So that's going to require a liquidity mechanism that can facilitate that value transfer. And the only thing that I see in that position is XRP. So I have to see what plays out here. I do believe that they will push that along before they start tokenizing the stock market. in July. I don't think it'll be in concert with that. I think it would happen prior. So again, it's difficult to predict timeframes on any of this stuff, but just based on the timeframes that the banks and institutions and the exchanges and the DTCC have come out for when they're going to be doing these things, similar to like ISO 20022. A lot of people thought that's going to be it. That's when we're going to see instant settlement. No, that is when they standardize the messaging system across the banks. That is a precursor or something that has to be done before they could move to instant settlement. In my opinion, you would need back-end settlement of the stock market to move to T+0 before you could then tokenize the stocks. And that's the sequence, right? So if they plan on tokenizing stocks in Q3 of this year and full-blown in Q4, I would expect that we would need back-end settlement and reconciliation first. So that means potentially toward the end of Q2 here or very early Q3. That's when I'm watching. I've told you guys a couple different times. I'm watching, May, June, July here for a lot of these catalysts to play out. So we're right here on the precipice of it. We got the yen climbing, or falling, however you want to look at it, against the US dollar, back close to 159 yen per USD. Once we get to that 160, 161, that's where the Bank of Japan is going to have to make some choices. They can either intervene in the currency market one more time and kick the can just a little bit further down the road, or they can just go ahead and raise interest rates here in Japan, not here in the US, in Japan. You also have Warsh being sworn in on Friday. Jerome is out. He does plan to lower interest rates here in the US. And with that, I do think that they're going to have to be able to go the other direction. So there's two levers that monetary policy can use to be able to manipulate inflation in an economy, or jobs, or GDP. And those two are print more money or reduce M2 money supply or raise or lower interest rates. And you wouldn't want to do both forward or both backward. You would want to do one either direction. Okay. So they have been raising interest rates and they have been printing more money, right? So that's kind of in opposition. I think that they're going to go back the other direction. I think they're going to lower interest rates here and reduce the balance sheet of the Fed. And that's what he's been talking about. And he thinks that he can do that systematically over a period of time to be able to create that soft landing that they've been talking about. I'm pretty confident that we're going to see some things break here soon because of the conflict with Iran and oil going much higher, the cost of energy causing inflation across the economies globally. And at that point, we're going to see the credit call come to roost. Michael Gayad out there screaming from the rooftops that we are going to see a full unwind of the reverse carry trade. I tend to agree with him. There are many other people out there that are saying, a good portion of this has already been unwound and it's not going to be a problem. We'll see. Somebody else was saying that, a lot of smart people are contradictory to me. I would agree with that. There are a lot of people that I hold in high regard that don't believe what I believe. And that's okay, right? The opportunities in a market are when you have conviction and you are the contrarian and you are right. That, like Michael Burry, I frame him as a reference all the time. Many people told him he was crazy, that wasn't going to happen. There's no way that that'll collapse, blah, blah, blah. Guess what happened? He was right. So I think, we're a little bit more than 2 years from me at this point. I came out with the domino theory in March of 2024. We're about 2 years and 2 months since I originally posted that. And many of the things that I stated in that original theory have come to pass. We have XRP ETFs, we have the Genius Act, and the last thing that I think we need before they can actually let it unwind is going to be guidance from the OCC on stablecoins. Until we have that in place, it's going to be difficult if we do see the rotation out of U.S. Treasuries into Japanese bonds as their rates rise and our rates fall. So that's what I'm waiting on. We may not get it. That may be the catalyst that forces the OCC to go ahead and push that along. They have already received all the comments. Their comment period ended May 1st, and they have until July 18th to be able to issue that guidance around stablecoins here domestically in the US. So that's my thesis. That's where I think we're at. We are starting to see breadth open up back up in the market here. Things started to look like they were going to get moving this last weekend when we had, the Clarity Act, the market, or the markup pass. Like I said, I'm still concerned that the Senate may keep that from going all the way. That's yet to be seen. I'm hopeful for it, just like everybody else is. I was literally on Capitol Hill in the middle of the summer last year advocating for both the Genius Act and the Clarity Act to get passed. I'm not against the Clarity Act in any capacity. I would love to see the full, all the regulation come into this space. It only helps our business, right? I'm the chairman of Digital Ascension Group, and this is probably a good time for my disclaimer. Nothing here is financial advice. It's only for entertainment and educational purposes. You should always speak with a CPA, attorney, or financial advisor before making any tax, legal, or financial decisions. Any statements made here are my opinions. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or any of our subsidiaries. So that being said, we do operate a regulated business for wealth management and all the other estate planning and insurance and all the other fun stuff. Have all the licenses and people with the credentials to be able to do that at the firm. I am not licensed. I own the firm. So I come on here and I talk about, how I'm positioning myself in the market and my opinions on the market. But if you spoke to somebody that's on our team, they're going to be a little bit more conservative as a fiduciary, and they should be, right? That's what we employ them to do. So all that being said, I think we're right here on the precipice of it. We've got, the next couple months where they have to get this across the line in order to be able to tokenize the stock market. And it would be a really interesting time for these catalysts to play out and see all of this unfold right before, they implement these things. So that's what I'm waiting on. That's what I'm looking for. We'll go ahead and jump into the questions. Again, appreciate you taking time out of your what is it? It's Monday night. Monday night, come hang out with me here on YouTube, X, Facebook, and over here on Twitter. On TikTok. So yeah, we'll go ahead and jump into it. We'll go ahead and do the one from last week before I forget about that, and then people get mad at me. We've got super chat. Let's see here. We met at ETH Denver a while back. They say, I'm curious if XRP is the next golden child of crypto. Wouldn't the supply be gone by now due to the value? Is BlackRock saving some for the rest? Thanks. So, I get this question frequently. People are like, well, if they knew this was going to happen, everybody would be buying it. I'm pretty confident. And again, I could be wrong. I'm not the end all be all, right? This is just based on conversations that I've had and my research, that a lot of this has been pre-allocated. It's been negotiated. The institutions and enterprise players out there that are going to be leveraging this network to be able to facilitate value transfer and need a stake in it have already got a piece of XRP, BlackRock included. And that being said, if somebody were to front run the market or cause a supply shock or push the price up prior to when they really needed it, it won't work. They need a lot of demand for XRP all at one coordinated time in order to be able to push it to the value they need it to be in order to start using it. If they push it up 10, 20, 30 bucks and it falls back down because they didn't time the demand all at once, they're not going to be able to drive to the price they need it to be. And there's other people out there that have, different theories. Again, I'm not the end all be all. You should listen to multiple people and, come to your own conclusions on stuff. There's kind of like an administrative repricing thing going around that's been discussed for years. We literally wrote, I was on the valuation committee with Jimmy Valley when we wrote the white paper on, what we thought XRP should be worth in case, the government tries to pay you to buy it back from you, or there's a seizure or something like that, which again, I'm pretty skeptical of. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's a good thing we have that paper in place just in case that plays out. But an administrative repricing, my concern with an administrative repricing is it's a fixed value. It's not flexible. It needs to be dynamic in order to be able to continue to grow over time. And if it, this is the same reason I don't think it would ever be pegged to gold. You need the value of XRP to continue to be able to expand over time as more value moves on chain, more things are tokenized, there's more value in settlement between counterparties. If it's a fixed value, it makes it very rigid, and it wouldn't fit the use case of an exchange rate peg. If you want to go look up a white paper that was written by the IMF in 2014, they talked about an exchange rate peg. Shortly after that, XRP was rebranded to XRP from Ripple's after it had been gifted to Ripple. And prior to that, it was called XNS when it was originally minted. So all that being said, that's my rebuttal to the administrative repricing. Could they do it like they did gold, where they bought it back from the American public, which they wouldn't have to do that with XRP. They could just take it from Ripple. They could then change the price to a higher threshold like they did with gold, moving it from $20 to $35. And then they had to titrate it up a couple more times before they moved away from that standard, because it wasn't malleable. It couldn't grow and expand with the balance sheet or GDP or the rest of the world's global economics. XRP can, if they don't take that same route. If they use supply and demand dynamics to be able to push the price to where they need it to be so that they can start using it, and then that volume dictates price over the long term, I think that that's how this becomes elastic and dynamic and has the ability to continue to grow as more value moves on chain versus an administrative repricing where it's fixed. Again, just my 2 cents on it. I could be completely wrong. Maybe it's been pre-negotiated and they know what levels it needs to be at. They're just going to peg it and then move it over time to where it needs to be as they expand things. Also possible. But all that being said, back to the original question, why aren't people buying it up? They are. They're buying it up on the OTC desk in the dark pools, which isn't moving the price on the exchanges. And institutions are extremely sophisticated, if you didn't already know that. They employ people, they employ quants and analysts to be able to help them get the highest return. We've seen a couple people divest, both Citi and Goldman, from their XRP and Solana ETFs. Why would they do that? Well, when we saw a run up last week, and now we've seen the market retrace, they could have been strategically taking profits on those trades. They didn't have a huge allocation. $1.7 million isn't a ton for a large financial institution, but it is, an allocation. So for them, taking profit on that probably makes a lot of sense. And they could then buy back in at a lower price, which now we're at. We saw it dip back down to 136. We're still hanging out around 20 to 2, that $1.40 mark. So that's my thesis on that. I think that it needs to be a coordinated effort across all the different counterparties to drive the price to where they need it to be, and they know that it needs to be an orchestrated deal in order to accomplish that. So that's my tinfoil hat on why we're not seeing huge buy volume across the exchanges and driving price up higher than what it currently is. Colin Cooper, my man, says, Jake, I've been investigating XRP since 2017. Is this finally the year? Not according to me, according to Monica Long, 2026 is the year that we're going to see institutional adoption at scale for XRP and the XRPL. And I tend to believe her. All right, scrolling on down here in the chat, we are going to find the next super chat. This person says, why is no one excited about the DTCC going on blockchain in October? Let's say XRP settles 25% of the DTCC. How much will XRP need to be? It is an all or nothing on the DTCC. The DTCC, not 3 C's, 2 C's, they're going to settle on one unified network. They could tokenize. You can tokenize stocks on multiple exchanges utilizing different technology, but the settlement's all going to have to be on one unified layer. So there's not going to be a 25% goes to XRP. It is an all or nothing situation with whatever they use to settle. Now, could there be some redundancies like, John Wingate was talking about at ETH Denver this year when he was at the XRP event there with Ray Fuentes? Shout out to Ray. Love you mucho. Sure, there could be redundancies for settlement. You might have HBAR and Solana and XLM on the back end for situations where the XRPL is overly used or congested, or there's downtime or whatever. You would want that in place in case there was a situation like that. You've seen R3 trial Solana, and it's integrated with both that and XDC. But the primary settlement mechanism is and always will be XRP for that. And I do believe that Project Ion is what they're going to use to settle, which was finalized by the DTCC with R3 in August of 2022. It's the longest standing infrastructure play that's been out there, the most trialed. Again, banks and institutions and markets, these operate at a very large scale, and they're not going to just on a whim pick something. They have to trial it for an extended period of time and make sure that it's not going to have any issues. So again, going back to my thesis, XRP will settle 100% of the back end of the stock market. And with that, I just told you what the price would have to be a little bit earlier, but I'll restate it again. You need somewhere between $500 and $5,000 per XRP in order to be able to accomplish, the settlement of the back end of the stock market for $250 billion per year. So that's where I think it's going. And I don't think it's going to be an either or an and. I think it's going to be an only, and I'm very sure that it's XRP. Rick Johnson, my man, he says, Jake, May 2016, 70 to 100K, XRP 7 to 10K, 7 friggin' cents. Well, it's still 100 XRP. Price appreciation crybabies need to stop asking about price appreciation when it will happen. It's been going on. I'm with you, dude. If you were here, back in the day, like you're talking about, XRP was under a penny for a long time before we saw $3.84. And I know people that did very well on that trade. I won't name the name, but you guys know Max Kahn, who's the CEO at Digital Wealth Partners. He worked with a gentleman at a fund. They were one of the first 100 investors in XRP back in the day. They bought it for 0.03 of a penny in that fund, and they sold it over $3. Exited on 1,000x return for their investors on that fund. I think that this will be a similar situation. That move was 38,000% in a very short period of time. I think we could see something very similar here, when all this plays out and we do have another supply shock like we saw in 2017. Good to see you again. They say, hey, Jake, if the DTCC announced 16 cryptocurrencies that don't need the Clarity Act approval, will we have to wait until 2027 for XDC, Flare, Ondo, Hash, Canton Network to increase in price? None of these cryptocurrencies are listed of the 16. Not necessarily. So again, a lot of people are hopeful for the Clarity Act. I am too. I just think XRP is going to move before the Clarity Act gets passed. And it's not to say the Clarity Act doesn't get passed shortly after that. I just am very confident that we're going to see XRP move prior to the Clarity Act actually being codified into law. So all that being said, those 16 cryptocurrencies, it was actually not the DTCC that announced that. It was the CFTC and the SEC that gave the designation of commodities to those 16 cryptos. XDC, Flare, Ondo, Hash, Canton, bullish on all those, bullish on Chainlink, bullish on many other digital assets that are out there that weren't on that list. And those may end up being the opportunities, right? So Bitcoin, Solana, Ethereum, XRP, many of the other ones, outside of XRP, I don't know that they're going to get a huge bump post Clarity Act or implementation of some of these networks. And the ones you mentioned here, aside from Hash and XDC and Flare, both Canton and Ondo, are both governance tokens for those networks. They don't settle the value within those ecosystems. So there's a very stark difference between an asset that provides liquidity to be able to settle transactions versus Something that's a governance token or pays fees, like Quant is another one, an overledger, where you pay fees in that crypto in order to be able to participate on the network, but not settle value across the network. So, again, we need much more regulation around this stuff. We need, Congress to come to the table. I'm glad that we're in the room. We're on the digital chamber. I don't want to say we're educating, some of the congressmen and women and other people that are on that committee. But oftentimes, we're providing insights that they don't know about or haven't learned about yet. And that's good. We need people like ourselves and people like you guys that understand this stuff, helping support this ecosystem and this asset class and providing that education to people so that they understand how it actually functions and how to regulate it the right way. So to answer your question, I do think that the ones that you mentioned here are going to be a bit slower grow, including many of the others over there on the 16 that have already been designated commodities. People would like that. People would like it to go up and to the right for an extended period of time instead of a big jump or have volatility. And that's where I think XRP is different than the ones that you mentioned. I think that those will continue to see adoption. I think that they will continue to do well. There'll be additional demand that comes onto those networks from different things being tokenized or financial products being built, or for them garnering, enterprise adoption for marketplaces or exchanges or other applications that we don't even know about yet. So could it be 2027? Yeah, but that's okay. Like if you're in this asset class, you should be looking at it as an investment. It should not be an overnight get rich quick deal. You should be planting seeds that you may never sit under the tree, right? Like that's not a parable. I can't think of the word, but if you're thinking legacy, which is what I encourage people to do, there could be things that you invest in your lifetime that aren't going to bear fruit, that your kids and your grandkids and your great grandkids will get to benefit from, right? So that's kind of how I think about these. I don't know that it's on that long of a time frame. My minimum time frame for an investment is at least 4 years. And if you're expecting things to happen faster than that, then it's probably not an investment. You're more of a trader. And again, these are just my opinions. I'm just some random guy on the internet. So Kryptonium says, hey, brother, what in the world is going on with the yen today? Up 800, down 900, up 750, down 600, up and down over and over and over again. So weird. Yeah. Look, like this is, when you see irregularity in markets like this, there's problems. There are systemic issues. And so I think that's what's going on. And something's got to break here soon. Alpha Grid Hero says July, or Clarity Act, July 4th, OCC stablecoin rules, July 18th, DTCC tokenization, July XRP Moon before or after July. Again, everybody wants timeframes on stuff. I could sit here and pontificate both directions. I could tell you why it's going to be longer than that. I could also tell you why it might be tomorrow, right? The answer is I don't know. My best educated guess, like I stated before at the beginning of this, is that we are going to see back-end settlement move to T+0 first before we see tokenization of the stock market. And the Clarity Act, I don't know that we're going to get it July 4th. Like I said before, we're supposed to vote on it within the next 30 days. So that would put us mid-June when it would go to a vote on the floor. I don't know if they're even going to get to that. They've got to do the SAVE Act. They also have the PACE Act. You got a recess in August of this year. They did get the markup done in the time frame that I said that they needed to in order to actually be able to get it to a vote. So again, hopeful like everybody else. But all that being said, I think XRP is going to see it stay in the sun before we see the tokenization of the stock market. Please give us hope. Everybody is beat up asking about time tonight. I've answered it, 5 different ways at this point. So hopefully you've been here for it and got it. Stellar Collections, cool name. They say, hey, Jake, if 10 billion XRP can be reused consistently every 3 seconds of settlement time and liquidity pools, wouldn't that impede price potential? It would, depending on the amount of volume that was settling through those pools in the network. So, 10 billion sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot. And it would really be, like you said, let's say you could use it 10 times per day. It can't be reused every 3 seconds. And again, that doesn't come from me. That comes from, what's his name? He works at BlackRock. It's been a long day for me. It'll come to me. So anyway, the calculator that he built when he was at Ripple showed it could be used up to 10 times per day, not 10 times per second, or however frequently you're stating here. So let's say that amount of XRP would effectively be worth or be usable, up to 10 times per day would be 100 billion XRP. If you're settling trillions, tens of trillions, hundreds of trillions of dollars per day, even if you had 100 billion XRP settling that volume, you would still need a very high price in order to be able to facilitate that. And I don't know that you're even going to have 10 billion XRP available to facilitate that value transfer. The reason behind that being, I believe XRP will be a tier 1 asset designated by the BIS. And once that happens, the amount of XRP that's going to be used as collateral, that's going to be wrapped on these other networks, that's going to be, put into liquidity pools or held as an asset on balance sheets, is going to lock up a ton of XRP. I don't think that there's going to be a ton out there to be used. I think that there might be, if I'm going to take an educated guess, 5 billion or less is what I think will be available on the market for actual settlement for FX, SWIFT, commodities, back into the stock market, and derivatives, while the rest of it is locked up as collateral or held on balance sheets. So we'll see if I'm right on that or not. Time will tell, but that is my educated guess. Truth of Hearts, KT baby, how are you, ma'am? Good to see you. She says, I'm real sick of your McDonald's Wi-Fi. Again, traveling. I apologize for any delay in and buffering that you're seeing in this stream. TikTok's having a good time over here. My wife says, Happy Meal toy Wi-Fi. Yeah, it's not my favorite either. Believe me, it is a lot of friction. I will be back Wednesday night for you guys. So if you want to skip this one because it's buffering and having some issues, or want to listen back to it later, it is recorded. It'll be up on the channel. You can check it out anytime. Rick Johnson, again, he says, Sam of Voice Elliott, Miss KT needs to mind her own tires. I drive on 4 with great tread and full-size spare. I am posting super chats to torment Jake via humor, not amuse hecklers. Look up Shell, question and answer. For those that don't get that reference, he was asking about bald tires not that long ago, and then KT Baby, got him on the last one. So I like the back and forth. I appreciate you guys. Let's see here. We already did that one. This person says, hey, Jake, I just messaged to say I appreciate the tea lady taking the time to have a conversation with you over the message I put toward her. She seems awesome. Give her a shout out for me. So shout out to my wife. Shout out to the tea lady. She is not here with me today. She's with me in spirit and moderating the TikTok over there. I appreciate her and all her help. She's had a rough couple days, and prayers would go a long way for my wife. So if you guys want to pray for the tea lady and just ask for some peace in her life, that would be very much appreciated. Dukes 56 says, with the OCC deadline of 7/18, does that mean scams pays you 7/19? Rough idea of 13K XRP. To be honest with you, again, the only reason I made the bet with scams this time or last time was just to make sure that those people that he took the XRP from get their XRP back. It's not for me to profit in any way off of it. I literally won't, because it was double or nothing. So I've already paid him extra XRP. This would just be, again, to make sure that those people are paid back, and I would get my XRP back. So it would be a wash if Scams pays up on this one, which I think he might have to. Rustic Earth says the CTG tax in Australia is up to 47% as of July 2027. Advice on exit plans besides Dubai and Singapore. Things are getting crazy here in Australia. Thanks. Oh, man. I don't know what region you want to live in. So no Dubai or Singapore. You could look at Nevis. You could look at Puerto Rico. You could look at the Caymans. You can look at British Virgin Islands. You could look at Isle of Man. You could look at Cyprus, Malta, Switzerland. It's warm there in Australia. So, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you like the cold, but I was trying to think about people or places that would be a little more aligned with the weather that you're used to. Come on down to Texas. We'll take you. I love my Aussie friends over there. You guys would fit right in with people in Texas. I promise you. So, come on over to the great state of Texas. We would love to have you. But yeah, any of those other places also have some pretty good tax advantages. And some of them have warmer climates, and some of them have colder climates. It just depends on what you want at the end of the day. And again, I've kind of come to this conclusion here recently also. This person says Vietnam, another good spot. Taiwan, the whole point of having a lot of money is to be able to live and do whatever you want. Live where you want, do what you want, spend time how you want. And if you have a lot of money and you enjoy living in Australia, there are people there that can help you mitigate. I was going to say circumvent. That's the wrong word. Mitigate your taxes. So you just need to find there's a lot of family offices there in Australia, and they continue to stay there, and they have things structured offshore, but they still have access to that capital and some control over it. And so that may be the give and take. We have one of our good friends and clients that moved from New York to Australia. Now, New York has worse taxes than the 47%, so he's saving a little bit by moving to Australia. But yeah, not much. Kingdom Within Me, very cool name. Appreciate the super chats. They say, do you see Ripple buying Flare? Also, do you see Flare at $1 by September 1st of 2026? Played golf with one of the team members from Flare not that long ago, in conversations with them about some things. Would Ripple buy Flare? So Flare is a decentralized protocol. Flare Finance is a different company. And that's kind of what they're doing over there within that ecosystem for F Assets and Hugo and all the good guys that are working on that project. They invested in them. Ripple has made strategic investments over the years where they have then gone back and made acquisitions. So it's quite feasible that might be one of their plays. On the institutional side, I don't know what that gets them. They would still be able to access that network and be able to, participate on it, and probably get some economics on the corporation. And I'm sure Ripple has, actually, it was interesting on the Flare airdrop, which, just by the way, full disclaimer for scams that are going on out there. I've seen a bunch of Flare airdrops and XRP airdrops and a bunch of stuff here lately. All of that's a scam. Anything saying they're going to airdrop you anything. There are some legitimate airdrops out there, so I want to be careful when I say this because I don't want other people to get mad at me. There are some legitimate ones, but anything that you see advertised below a creator's page that looks too good to be true, probably too good to be true. So just be careful out there. Make sure you're not clicking on links or doing things you shouldn't be. Don't give anybody your seed phrases. don't get fished. Don't put yourself in a bad position where you lose your XRP. So all that being said, I'd love to see flare at $1. Yeah, I think that'd be great. By the time frame that you mentioned there, I have no clue. I think over the long term, it will be wildly successful. However, to be able to define the time frame in which that takes place in, my guess is as good as yours. Golden Hour Fishing Co. 4918 says, in regards to MasterCard and JPM Pilot, can you explain how it does not show that XRP can be sidestepped and only used a very small amount? So at the current time, it could be. And the reason for that is the same reason that Ripple has used Tether and now uses ROUSD for their settlement and on-demand liquidity. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, XRP is not a high, the only reason is XRP is not a high stable value. Once XRP is a high stable value, the routing will push it through XRP because it'll be the cheapest, fastest way to get it somewhere, even more so than the issued assets. The other piece on that deal is there's 4 counterparties that are involved. None of those counterparties, they want to be able to get this infrastructure across the line, to be able to get it to consumers and be able to generate the returns. But no one singular counterparty is going to want the other counterparties to benefit more than they do. Similar to the banks, sovereigns, countries, governments, all this stuff, you need a decentralized DEX where they can all leverage it, and no counterparty has an advantage over the others. So MasterCard, I'm sure, is going to issue their own stablecoin. JP Morgan, we know they have JPM coin. Ripple has ROUSD. So could they use any number of those? Sure. But would it benefit one of the counterparties more so than the other ones? Absolutely. So when it comes down to it, they would much rather use a neutral value in the middle where they all get to gain economics versus, one party benefiting more than the others. And that's the whole point of XRP. I had a conversation at dinner tonight where the gentleman asked me, well, what if the governments issue their own thing? They're going to. It's not like they're not going to. But you need interoperability. You need no counterparty risk. You need a DEX that settles real time and allows you to exchange value with counterparties without being reliant on some central intermediary that can freeze your transactions or claw it back or do something else that you don't want or didn't intend to happen. So that would be my rebuttal to that. And again, not the end all be all. This is just, 6 years worth of conversations and research and a lot of stuff in the background. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, like I told you last time, one of my favorite movies in my youth. They say, why do you start with term life insurance that can convert to whole life? That's a good question. So I don't know your age. I don't know your situation. Term life or insurance products are not a fit for everybody. I'll just start there. Okay. They are not the end all be all. They are a tool that can be used in certain situations that might benefit you depending on your long-term goals, your suitability, your risk tolerance, all the other stuff. I would work with a financial advisor or an insurance specialist in order to be able to determine whether or not you specifically would benefit from these policies. I have a term life policy. So I'm going to talk about my reasoning on why I did that. I have people that count on me. I have a lot of people that count on me. And at this point in my life, there would be significant loss if I were to pass away. Not planning on it, knock on wood, but I'm just saying, I have to be disciplined and responsible enough to understand that and make good decisions so that if that were to occur, there's a safety net for people. So I have a term policy, and the company and my family would be taken care of if something were to happen to me. And it's convertible. It's convertible to a whole life policy. So why would you make it convertible? Well, you may want to use the infinite banking model later on. You may want to grow the cash value inside that policy. You may want to, use some of the other interesting ways to be able to fund a life insurance policy. through premium finance or some other options. Again, these are all sophisticated stuff that smart individuals, smarter than me, understand and can walk you through. But the reason that you would start with term life is it's far cheaper than whole life. Another reason that you would start with the term life now versus later is you probably are in good health now. Everybody thinks about insurance after they're already sick, when they're dying, when things are going wrong in their life, and they're like, I wish I'd set that up sooner, because right now the premiums, I won't even be able to make the premiums in order to be able to pay for this policy, so there's a payout for my kids. When you set up the term policy when you're younger or in good health, that is the health panel that's used when you convert it to a whole life. So God forbid 2 years from now you get cancer, or you're in a car wreck, or you have a heart attack or a stroke, or something else is an ailment to you. Because you set this up now and you've done the health panel while you're healthy, that doesn't matter. You can convert it to a whole life later on, and you still get the same health panel and treatment as you would when you originally set up the policy. So that's one of the main benefits of going ahead and being proactive and structuring something now versus later. And again, term is far cheaper than whole life. Most people, if you can't max fund a whole life policy, so when I sold insurance, I was Jake from State Farm for about 6 weeks. And when I took the test and I was looking at all the policies, I was like, this is a scam. Like if you're not max funding, your annual contribution to a whole life policy, it really doesn't behoove you. Like, it takes a long time to build up a cash value that's worth anything. Term is much better. I was like, wow, it's way cheaper and you get much better coverage. Why wouldn't everybody do this? Well, the other thing is, depending on where you are at in your life, you might not be able to underwrite a term policy. It may be just as expensive as a whole life policy. If you're later up in years and you're overweight and you're a smoker, and there's certain things that they look at to be able to determine the cost or the premiums that you're going to pay when they underwrite the policy. All those things matter, right? So, hopefully that gives you a better understanding of like how to think through why I'm being proactive and structuring this now versus doing it later, the consequences of potentially waiting till later. And again, if you're a single dude or lady out there and you don't have dependents, you don't have a ton of people counting on you, it's probably not an expense that you should, set up. But if you do have those things, as a responsible adult that's looking after other people, or even your nieces and nephews, or however you want to do it, whoever you want to put as the beneficiary, you could even put a charity as a beneficiary if you wanted to at least be able to cover your own burial. How many people, I don't know if you guys have experienced this or not. Luckily, my father did have a life insurance policy that paid out for him and was helpful, when we went to go, he wanted to be cremated. So that's what we did. But many people don't have a life insurance policy. They don't have anything set up. They pass away, and then your family's stuck with the bill for the $10,000 it's going to take to bury you. You know what I mean? So even if you just had a small policy, it's better than nothing, and it's not going to cost you a ton on the term, and you're going to be able to underwrite it now while you're healthy, and then be able to convert it later on if it's something that you want to do. And if you want to talk to people on our team to be able to help you with that, there's a lot of good people. Coach JB does a fantastic job with the insurance. He has a good team of people over there. We also do life insurance on our side. You can go to Exure Legacy if you want to work with us. And I don't know if it's Warrior Academy or what he has, but you can go check him out too. I think they do more IULs and stuff over there. Maybe they have term. I think they're good people, and they're going to get you the best product. And that's really all I care about, whether you work with us or somebody else, is that you get the best product and the right thing for you and your family at the time that allows you to continue to grow into something later on. So Exure Legacy, XURE, legacy.com is our insurance arm for Digital Ascension Group. Big Dog. He says, if the yield on a 10-year bond keeps going up, won't that make it harder for the reverse carry trade to trigger? The U.S. 10-year has to be lower than the JPY 10-year. What changes that? Much love to you, bro. Pray for you every day. Thank you, man. I appreciate the prayers. They're needed a lot of the time. There's a lot of stress, a lot of things going on, but that's good. You can't complain about your plate being full when you ask to eat. So God is good. God is good all the time, and I appreciate the prayers. So yeah, to your point, if the 10-year for the U.S. continues to rise, why would they rotate out of the 10-year into the Japanese? They wouldn't. You're going to need to see bond yields come down on the U.S. side. And if people are selling off U.S. Treasuries, you're not going to see those bonds come down. So we're going to need to see a huge amount of demand, a huge amount of buyers for those Treasuries in order to be able to drive demand, to be able to push the bond yield down. The other thing that they can do in order to be able to drive the bond yield down is, you guessed it, lower interest rates aggressively, which is what Warsh tends to do. So I would expect that they are going to lower interest rates aggressively. At least that's the word on the street from what I've heard. And if Japan's raising interest rates aggressively while we're lowering interest rates aggressively, you would see that rotation take place. Not even going to try this name. I'm going to butcher it. But thank you for the super chat. They say, hi, Jack, Boyd fan. Can you explain on a tactical level how I can start working with you? Do I need to move my XRP to your canon? Thanks. I'm assuming that English is not your native language, and that's okay. I think I got your question here. So our minimums at Digital Wealth Partners, which will eventually be DAG Wealth here in the near future, are 50,000 XRP or at least $100,000. And if you have either of those, $100,000 in crypto or 50,000 XRP, we would love to work with you. We can get you into institutional custody over there at Anchorage with an institutional account. It's an FBO account, segregated, bankruptcy remote, insured up to $100 million. You get an advisor. You get all the wonderful things. Effectively a Schwab account for your crypto. You get to add your spouse on there. You have beneficiaries on the account. And then we're working on different ways to be able to provide yield and returns for everybody on their XRP over there, not just the accredited people that we currently work with. So those are the minimums. If you don't have that much and you still want to work with us, we would love to have you. You can go to app.digitalascensiongroup.com and download the app, set up a corporation. Again, because you're international, I don't know that that's going to be the best track for you, just because the corporations that we structure are here domestic in the U.S. We're working on multi-member and we're working on international LLCs there in the app. So we'll keep you guys up to date when we have those things. But those would be the two ways that you could currently work with us. When you do work with us on the wealth management side, you would move your assets into your wallet there inside Anchorage, and it would be held there with us as a signer on the account to help mitigate the risk of loss and make sure that your assets are insured and segregated and bankruptcy remote and all the fun stuff that you want them to be. All right, we are an hour in, so I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of the chat, and then we're going to work our way back up. And if I missed your super chat, again, I apologize. We will get it on Wednesday. All you have to do is email it to us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io or pass it to us over there in the chat. Actually, not the chat, the DM on pretty much any of our social media channels, the legitimate social media channels, not the scammers, because there's a lot of those out there, unfortunately. All right, Justin, you're the last one. You snuck it in there. He says, not going to ask when. Just wanted to say thank you for all that you do for the meek. You rock, bro. Thank you, dude. The meek will inherit the earth. And I believe that is exactly what's happening right now with XRP. There's a certain type of person that finds this content, that finds XRP, and has the discernment to make the investment. Many people tell me they feel guided in some capacity. I feel guided in what I do. And that is a wild spot to be in, and a very just surreal situation that's transpired between all the different people that are involved with this asset. I've never seen anything like it. So if you feel guided, if you feel like, you want to make a difference for your community or a cause, or you have a bigger purpose here, and you need capital and resources and a network of people to be able to do that, this is it. I'm very confident of that. If you need that network and you want to meet other cool people and you want to be able to have some camaraderie, and be around other sharp people that are making cool decisions and helping other people, we'd love to have you in the mastermind. All you got to do is go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar gets you the first month for $2 there in the group. It's month to month, no contract. You can cancel anytime. But we have close to 17,000 people that continue to pay month to month. So if that tells you anything about the value that you get from that community, again, we would love to have you. Kathy, she says, hey, Jake, I live in Baton Rouge and I'm a DWP client. Is there an event tomorrow? Invite only. I would love to listen and possibly meet. If there was, I would love to invite you, Kathy. Unfortunately, I am not managing this event. I'm only here for about 24 hours. Flew in this afternoon and I am back out tomorrow. We do have one other client. Well, actually 2 other clients that are here in Louisiana that may be attending this deal. This is a family office deal. So again, it's not my place to invite people. I wish I could. If I was going to be here longer, we would have definitely put something on. We have stuff in Texas all the time. I know that's a long drive. I thought about driving over here, to be honest with you. It probably would have taken me about the same amount of time because my flight got delayed today. And I sat in the airport for an extra hour and a half. And I could have just been driving along 5 hours from my house over here to Baton Rouge and then 5 hours back tomorrow, instead of, going to the airport and sitting around and going through security and doing all the fun stuff. But I will say this, not every time I go through the airport, but fairly frequently now, people will recognize me. They will come up and say hi. So if you see me out in public, it happened this weekend. I was playing golf and the guy behind me in the group behind me was like, so that's really cool. I'm happy to take photos, stop, chat, get to know people. I like that part of this. So if you see me out there, don't hesitate to reach out and say hi. True Altitude says, what's your honest take on ATH, with ATH being tied to NVIDIA's AI ecosystem and nations racing for compute? Do decentralized compute networks solve the shortage? Also, what's your ATH projection? Don't even know what it is. Haven't done enough research. We're going to do it right here. We're going to take a look here. ATH crypto. Ether. Very low price. Half a penny is the current value, way down from the all-time high of around 8 cents. Only been around for about 2 years. Total token supply is 42 billion. Not a whole lot of liquidity in the network. Circulating supply is about half of the total supply at 20 billion. Tokenomics look good. Market cap is $117 million today. What exchanges is it listed on? And I mean, it has a pretty good group of exchanges that's already listed on Coinbase, Upbit. It's in some DEXs, OKX. Shout out to OKX and their new XRP initiative. Pretty excited about that. KuCoin, MEXC, Bybit, and BitGet. So, I mean, it's got distribution. Sounds like it's got some good partnerships, probably worth looking at. I'd have to do some more research on total addressable market cap for that particular use case. But if it is going to be used in that application as you've, described here, might be worth picking up some, I'm going to continue to invest in the things that I understand. I would have to do some additional research before I would make an allocation to that. But it sounds interesting just based on, the small amount of research that you guys just saw me do. That's on CoinMarketCap. That's the first place I start with everything. So when somebody, tells me a new token or says, what do you think about this? I go to CoinMarketCap, I type in the ticker, look at it, look at the tokenomics. The next thing that I would do is I would go look at the team that's associated with it. I would look at the total addressable market that they're trying to solve for and what the projected total addressable market is over the next 5 to 10 years. I would look at the partnerships that they currently have, one of which you mentioned here. And I would look at it just like I would do a stock, right? These are networks, right? So market cap doesn't really apply to them in the same way that it would a stock. It's more of a protocol. And so, I would have to deeply understand what the value proposition is of the token. Is it a governance token? Is it, transferring value or data on the network? Why do they need it? Are they paying fees for decentralized compute? What drives additional demand for the token? There's some other constraints there that I would need to have a better understanding of before I could tell you any type of price projection or anything like that or time frame. But I appreciate you bringing it to my attention. That's cool to see other stuff on here. That's how I found Hash. It wasn't because somebody mentioned it, but it was because, I was doing some research and found another use case and thought, oh, this would be good if this was tokenized. And sure enough, there was already traction over there on Provenance. Kathy, thank you, ma'am. You're very nice. I wish I had if you're here local, I don't want to tell people where I am on a public forum. Reach out via DM on one of the social media platforms or email our team, and I'll see if we can get you information on where I'm at. And then if you're able to come by tomorrow before I cut out of here, happy to say hi and get to meet you in person. Rad Hopkins. They say a lot of chatter about government acquiring XRP to resolve the debt crisis. What's your take? When could this happen? Again, I think, a lot of this has been distributed on the back end years ago and worked out through the 1,700 NDAs or more than 1,700 NDAs that Ripple already has. When the Clarity Act passes, Ripple can only hold 20% of the total supply of XRP. On the other side of that, they have 12 months to be able to, get to that position. And with the pre-negotiated contracts and the over 50 wallets that they use for the escrow, I think that they could easily be able to distribute those wallets to different counterparties as needed in order to settle debts or, satisfy the options contracts that are currently out there. So that's my 2 cents. I think that will happen. And it's already been worked out many, many moons ago. Social, they say military discount on LLC and trust for the 250th anniversary. Maybe we'll have to see. July 4th, we've run some specials in correlation with some other holidays. Here's the deal for me. We've run discount codes for a long time. I view our services as a premium service. I think that they are the best in the world for what we do. I don't like to discount those because I believe that discounts tend to be perceived as a lesser value. When you do that, at least it does for me. When I see something and I'm like, oh, they're willing to give it to me for half or whatever, I don't think as highly of it. And I don't necessarily have the same respect for it I would if, like, Maserati doesn't give discounts. Okay. Ferrari doesn't give discounts. Patek Philippe doesn't give discounts. If anything, they could charge more. Right. And so there's some, air of allure and prestige that I believe is affiliated with our brand. And that's why we don't take everybody. We don't work with everybody. And again, that's not to shut the little guy out, because I think everybody's going to qualify. Otherwise, I wouldn't have positioned things where I have. But all that being said, we'll look at it for the 250th anniversary of the U.S. on July 4th this year. That is a big, big deal. And we'll see if we can't put something together for that. And we've done some military discounts in the past. We actually did a military webinar for, I don't remember if it was Memorial Day last year or Labor. Yeah, I think it was Memorial Day last year that we did a webinar and a discount for. And that's coming up, by the way. Thank you for your service. Also, I didn't say that but I do appreciate anybody that's served for our country. You've taken time away from your family and a large portion of your life in service of our nation, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you. Silent Command says, props, Mr. Legend and the Tea Lady. Would you start doing a tinfoil hat segment for live? I think we all enjoy it, and the hopium is always appreciated. Please rub the rock for PA. Are the aliens waiting for price appreciation too? I don't know if the aliens are waiting for price appreciation. I'll say this, like, I share a little bit on here. I have my conspiracy theories just like anybody else does. However, I don't know that it's always appropriate on a public forum to go into those. Some of the things I believe are a bit controversial, and that's okay, right? I think a lot of people have woken up to the fact that much of what we've been taught over our lifetime isn't necessarily completely accurate, and people are starting to question things and think critically about stuff, and that's what I'm hopeful for. Whether all the conspiracies are right or not, I think that there are some people that go way off the deep end and it's a bit much. I try to keep it within reason. But all that being said, I think it's good to be able to question the reality or the paradigm that we've just been given, and think critically through that in order to be able to come to our own reasoning about, what the reality of things really is versus just perception. So kudos to the people that are out there that do that and wear the tinfoil hat. This person says Goldman Sachs dumped their XRP. What's your thoughts? So they did not dump their XRP. They sold the ETF. They only had a $1.7 million allocation to the ETF. And Sol. They sold XRP and Sol and most of ETH and a little bit of XRP. When they saw the run up last week, it's a good time to take profits, especially if you don't think the Clarity Act is going to pass. So maybe that's the case, maybe it's not. But that's my thesis on why they have changed their allocation. And I do think that I think that they have a direct allocation also. I don't think that they need to own it through the ETFs. Let's see here. All right. We already did that one. Maybe, did I get through all of the super chats? No, I did not. AZXRP says, hey bro, where would you put 300K to work for you and make monthly income other than crypto? Asking for my father. 300K is not, this is going to sound, not great. But 300K is not a lot of money to be able to earn passive income off of. I mean, even if you're earning 5%, call it 10%, you're making 10% on your 300K, that's $30,000 a year. You're probably, that covers your house payment per year, depending on, what type of house you're living in. Probably a decent house. I mean, it's a nice house, $4,000 a month. No, a little less than that. Yeah. 3,000, what was that, 27? No, 36. Yeah. Anyway, it's a house payment, right? If you can earn some passive income, maybe a car payment, if you're earning passive income off of it by the time you pay the insurance and the taxes and all the other fun stuff that's going along with that. Depends on how aggressive you want to be. It sounds like your dad's probably older. He's probably a bit more conservative, looking for passive income to be able to supplement his lifestyle in some capacity. Mutual funds, bonds, a CD is probably what's appropriate and suitable for your father at his age with his risk tolerance and time horizon. Again, I don't know your circumstances. You could be 20 years old, your dad could be 40. And maybe I'm way out of bounds on that assessment. I would go talk to a financial advisor. You can contact our people at DWP, and they can help you with that. They can do traditional assets just like they can do crypto. We have Altruist as our platform over there. They can look at the different opportunities that they have there to be able to generate returns on that amount of money to be able to meet the income requirements or needs of your father. there are always alternatives, right? So you could look at real estate. I've seen real estate range anywhere from 10% on cash up to 18% cash on cash. Just depends on what you're in on the real estate side and who you're working with. If it's an opportunity zone, if they get cost seg on it, all the other fun stuff for taxes. Oil wells, also kind of risky, a little bit further up the risk curve, but has great tax deductions and also good returns on that. One of our employees, her boyfriend is part of an oil fund, and they do exceptionally well. You might look at private credit. We talked to a guy the other day that does like MCA loans for corporations, and they pay like 30% per year on that money. That's way up the risk curve. But again, that's an option that's out there. That'd be $100,000 per year or close to it that your dad would be earning on $300,000. Again, much riskier, probably not appropriate for him at his age or for all of that money. You would probably want to diversify across a couple different options with that amount of money to be able to generate a steady income. In case, things went wonky with one of them, you had some uncorrelated risk there. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't give you financial advice. I'm just spitballing some ideas and things that I know that are out there. Highly recommend you go to digitalwealthpartners.net, go to the contact us form, type that in, have a consult, and they would love to help him get that structured the right way to make sure that it's being put to work and he's generating some returns and it's suitable for whatever his constraints, risk tolerance, and time horizon are. Chad Reynolds, my man, he says, Mr. Jake, sir, thank you for all your time. Quick question. If XRP must be Y in order to be able to do its job, but what about JP Morgan's token? Same, right? I may or may not have a few. I'm assuming you're talking about Onyx. So Onyx is internal to JP Morgan's own systems. If that token is even associated with JP Morgan's infrastructure, by the way, don't know if it is. I can't find any like hardcore evidence one way or the other. So for me, that's a no. I don't invest in something I'm not sure of, which sounds crazy being in crypto, right? Like I have to have a very high conviction on something and it needs to be low risk for me to decide to allocate a significant amount of capital to it. And that's why I just continue to allocate to XRP. I have a little bit of hash. That's my 1% flyer that's out there. But everything else goes into XRP for me. So for Onyx, if that is the token that is used in JP Morgan's infrastructure, yeah, it would have to do pretty well. It would have to be a high price in order to facilitate. But that's not at a global scale, right? It's just going to be inside their infrastructure. Now, they are the largest banking institution across the globe, so pretty big deal. Yeah, it's not going to have the same value proposition as XRP would. KT Baby again. She says, Jake, do you think XRP will be gifted or allocated to the Fed or banks when the time is right to flip the switch? And will this cause a supply shock? It wouldn't cause the supply shock that we need because they need to be buying it off of exchanges if it was gifted or allocated, like you mentioned in the question. That wouldn't drive the price like we needed to. We need demand on the exchanges to be able to buy up the supply that's left and available there to be able to push the price to where it needs to be. But I do think what you stated will happen. I do think that there's going to be an allocation sent to a few people. Chad, again, appreciate you on the super chat, my dude. Hopefully I answered your question in regards to what you were looking for. The true derp. I said, hey, Jake, big fan. Just wing to you while I drive. If I've got my crypto on Webull, is there any way to get that into a trust, or I would have to sell? Correct. Keep up the good work. Ooh, I'm not sure on Webull, my man. I actually used Webull. The reason I like Webull is you're able to trade pre and post market. Some of the other trading apps when I was trading stocks didn't allow you to do that. And so I prefer that over Robinhood or some of the other options that are out there. For crypto, though, neither one of those are really a great choice. I don't know that you can move your crypto off of Webull in any meaningful manner. I know a lot of people have been prohibited to move more than like $5,000 per day off of Robinhood. So it takes you a long time if you have a bunch of crypto on Robinhood to be able to get it off there. So I would assume the same is true with Webull. I could be wrong about that. They may allow you to just move it off there like that. But I would get, I'd get at least a portion of it into a cold wallet, and I would use that cold wallet to set up the trust. Or again, you can work with us at Digital Wealth Partners, depending on how much you have. If you meet the qualifications or the minimums, 50,000 XRP or at least 100,000 in crypto, we would love to have a conversation with you. My man, Jake Griffin. I'll take it, dude. Blake Griffin's, not a bad looking guy, pretty successful. Is it possible to transfer some of my current XRP holdings into an iTrust account? Thanks for keeping me motivated. God bless. You can, depending on the type of IRA, I think it's got to be, I think we could do that at Digital Wealth Partners. I don't know if iTrust would do it. If you wanted to fund a retirement account at DWP and at Anchorage in kind, we could figure that out for you. Again, you would have to meet the minimum between your personal holdings or what's in your LLC and what you wanted to contribute to the IRA. We actually have a call with iTrust in the not too distant future. So I will ask them that question when we talk to them. But yeah, I don't know how old you are, Jay. So here's the like double-edged sword with the IRAs. You can't leverage it, you can't margin it, you can't do a whole lot with it to be able to generate returns other than trade it. We have an IRA product that continues to compound your XRP inside your IRA over there with Digital Wealth Partners. They only ever trade, 10 to 20% of your total allocation in order to be able to compound it. The first month that we had that product live, it did 1%. So everybody that had their XRP in that product inside their IRA made 1% more XRP over the month. I think that it's done pretty similar over the last month. So, if that sounds cool and that's what you want to do, then we would love to work with you in that capacity. I don't know if iTrust or anybody else has a product like that that's out there. The reason being that XRP is a collateral asset, and there's not a native DeFi way to be able to stake it. And so it's very difficult to be able to generate returns on XRP if you can't margin it or borrow against it. That's what Doppler's doing. That's what all these other people, and everybody else is doing with the asset, including us and our hedge fund, is we margin the asset, we reflect that value off exchange, we trade that margin or a portion of it to be able to generate the returns, and that's what we pass back to investors. You cannot do that with an IRA. There's certain types of IRAs where you can structure it inside of an IRA LLC or an IRA trust, and then you can do some of that. You have to work with the right people in order to be able to do it. It's not something that we do yet. We're working on it because I do want people to have those options inside of those, tax beneficial products. But that's kind of the, what you're giving up there. It's more of just buy and hold for the most part, unless you're going to put it in our algorithmic trading strategy with Digital Wealth Partners to be able to generate additional returns on top of it. But if you're in your 50s and you're not far from retirement, probably not a bad option. If you wanted to fund a Roth, you could do this year's contribution and last year's contribution, and you should be able to do that in kind if you wanted to, as long as you're working with us. Again, I'd have to talk to iTrust about it, but they may be open to it too. We'll just have to see when I have the conversation. But thank you for the question. And again, good looking out. People ask good questions on here. Like the insurance question was a good question tonight. That was a good question about IRAs. A lot of people ask questions about LLCs. If you need an LLC and you want to work with us on that to be able to structure things the right way, to be able to mitigate taxes, get creditor protection, and have anonymity. We just did a webinar on the advanced estate planning. It always starts with an LLC first to hold your digital assets. So if you want to work with us on that, you can go to app.digitalascensiongroup.com. That's app.digitalascensiongroup.com. pay the $1,500, get the LLC set up. We do the corporate veil, we do the registered agent, EIN, articles of organization, all of the other stuff. We do everything end to end for that LLC to make sure that it's structured the right way. And you get a bank account through Uphold in our app, and trading through Uphold to be able to, do all your stuff right there. And it only costs you 1% on the trading fees with no spread. Cheapest thing out there on the market, aside from Digital Wealth Partners, which is 20 basis points, which doesn't get any better than that. So, but anyway, yeah, I love the questions about like tactical stuff, whether it's the insurance or, structured products, other ways to mitigate taxes, how to set up your estate, your trust, all those things. If you want more of that, we talk about that a lot more in the mastermind than I talk about it here. Most of the people here ask for macro and price predictions and other stuff, which I don't mind. I get on here and answer it. I get a lot of fulfillment from it. But all that being said, if you want to dive deeper and want to have tactical understanding of what you're doing and how to do it, I would join the mastermind, beyondbroke.com. Or, again, email our team at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io. Scott, Mr. Maddox, he says, can you comment on the Decent award program for holding XRP on their cold wallet, or was that a false post? Thanks for all you do and the misses do for the community. God bless you all. So they do have a way to generate returns through the Decent wallet. We've been, an affiliate for them for a long time. They're the one affiliate that we've had. If you need a cold wallet, that's the one I recommend. They have, the biometric. They've got the largest breadth of assets out there to be able to hold if you're diversified across multiple cryptos. They've also integrated with Doppler Finance in order to be able to generate returns on your XRP inside of the wallet, which is fantastic. Caveat, if you are here in the US, that is a no-go. Can't do it. Doppler has geofenced the US. What they are doing is, I don't want to say it's an unregistered securities offering. They are concerned that it might be, and that's why they've geofenced the US. So if you're international and you want to be able to participate in that, either through the Decent wallet or through directly over there at Doppler, I will say that they are working with very qualified people. We've met them. We've had conversations. I think they're doing a great job. But if you are domestic here to the US or Canada, you're also, even if you use a VPN, you're kind of putting them at risk, because if they are soliciting to US investors and it does come back that they are offering a securities product, they could be fined and they could have issues. So, and I don't want that for them. I'm hopeful that, I think that they're going to do the right thing. They're sharp guys, and probably structure a securities offering or figure out how DeFi is going to work here in the US and be in alignment with that. But just be aware, you're operating in a gray area if you are doing that. But they are working with trusted parties, and I do think they'll be successful over the long term just based on our conversations with them. Again, there's risk with everything, so I should probably say that. I try to talk highly of people that I've met and feel good about, but at the same time, nothing is guaranteed. There's always risk. Things could go sideways. Something else could happen that they don't foresee or they didn't factor in, and you could lose your investments. So just know that participating on any platform, there are no guarantees. D3G Man says, JC, thoughts on Google Cloud Universal Ledger, GCUL? Never heard of it, but we will look it up right now. GCUL, Google blockchain. Google Cloud Universal Ledger, Google Cloud Web 3. Cloud.google. It's on Crypto Market Cap, talking about it. So at least there's an article about it. I was skeptical and thought maybe it was something sketchy. Google Cloud building blockchain for digital payments. Interesting. I'd have to do some more research on it. It looks, just again, at a surface level, looks cool. Google will absolutely have a banking function. They have a Google Wallet on your phone. If you have an Android, it's built in. Apple Pay, same thing. They're going to have their own stablecoin. When the PACE Act passes, which I do think that it'll allow fintechs to be able to get a FedMaster account, be able to participate and compete against the banks. And when that happens, I think over the long term, you'll have NFTs or digital titles against everything that you own, and it'll be all right there in your Apple or Google Wallet attached to your digital ID. So makes sense. Here's the deal, though. Those are issued assets. Google has control over them. There's counterparty risk. They can, freeze payments. They can claw them back. They can do whatever they need to inside their own ecosystem or with those different counterparties because they're their own issued assets. So just understand that when you're participating there, that you don't have zero counterparty risk. If you're okay with Google being your counterparty, then that's fine. It's kind of like people using ROUSD. If you're okay with Ripple being the counterparty and you trust them, then it's on the up and up. It's good to go. And I think that'll be successful. There's a reason that, Google's on Hedera's council. One Hucklebear says, when you say Japan has manipulated their dollar, they don't have a dollar, they have yen. If they do it again, the IMF will step in. What does that mean exactly? Appreciate you and the missus. Thank you, dude. So basically right now their bank, the Bank of Japan, affects monetary policy. They get to make their own decisions about their own currency. They're not beholden to the IMF coming in there and telling them what they have to do or the IMF doing it themselves. They allow, nations and currencies and the central banks some leeway on some stuff. But if it becomes problematic and it's a systemic risk, they will step in and make sure that it does not permeate the broader economy globally. And that's the IMF's job. So that's what I mean. They basically come in and say, you don't get to make any calls anymore. Now we make the calls. And I don't think the Bank of Japan wants that. DFW Mike, my dude, he says, evening boss. Sophia and I had dinner last night with a couple of honest OGs. They are a plethora of pertinent information, stories full of wisdom and humor. Absolutely awesome time. Hope to see you in the tea lady in a few weeks, if possible. Come on, price appreciation. Appreciate you, dude. See, that's the cool stuff about the mastermind. Like, you get to meet other people that you never would have, that have aligned interests, core values, and beliefs, and be able to, create those relationships now prior to price appreciation and learn from one another. It's the coolest culture that I've been a part of ever. You have aspirations when you start for stuff. And just to see it actually come to life and permeate the entire mastermind is it's surreal for me. I don't have words for it a lot of the time. I feel very blessed, very grateful. So, and it's because of people like you. If we didn't have cool people in the mastermind that were good, genuine people that wanted to help others and come together and do all these things, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. There'll be business deals, there'll be investments, there'll be all kinds of stuff we do in the mastermind. We have private deals. We've done many of those already. The coolest legacy of this whole group, I think, is going to be the philanthropic stuff that gets done. The foundations, the charities, the R&D that people put together and fund to be able to solve diseases or fix things in society or help others not have to go through pain and suffering in their lives. I think that's going to be the biggest impact that this group makes. So if that resonates with you, if you have some of those things on your heart and you want to be around other people that have similar things on their heart, I would encourage you to go try the Discord and the mastermind. It's not a good fit for everybody. Some people can't figure out the Discord and they have a hard time with that. Other people leave for other reasons. But again, to have that many people that continue to stay there, I think just speaks volumes for how much value it actually creates. Joseph, he says, when banks use ODL for cross-border payments, they convert fiat to XRP using an ODL provider like Coinbase Prime. What does Coinbase do with all that fiat? I assume they buy more XRP. Where do they buy it from? So that's not how ODL works currently. So as it sits today, until XRP is actually at a high enough value to be able to do the value transfer, or it can be used as collateral on a Prime balance sheet, which Ripple Prime does, what Ripple does is they send the XRP to Uphold. Uphold swaps it for whatever currency the bank wants. The bank then takes that money for a week. They do whatever they're going to do with it. They pay it back with interest. Uphold buys more XRP and swaps it back to Ripple. At least that's how it was a couple years ago. Today, it may sit different than that with ROUSD. I know that they used, Tether for a large portion of that for an extended period of time. They're basically they're a lender, right? So Ripple lends liquidity to people that need it for a certain amount of interest over whatever duration they're wanting to borrow it for, oftentimes a shorter term duration. And on the other side of that, sorry, my TikTok died here. And now my phone is, she did. We'll let it charge. But yeah, so the way that Ripple Prime works also is they will reflect that value on their balance sheet, and then they can cross margin that with other stuff. So if you want to put it in treasuries, you want to put it in stocks, you want to put it in something else, you basically can, hold your value in XRP or ROUSD, and then they will hold it on their balance sheet, and then with that value on their balance sheet, put it to work in some other capacity to generate returns for whoever's partnered with them. They only work with institutions. They do not work with individuals. I don't expect that they will ever work with individuals. There might be a reason that we have people set up corporations. I don't know. All that being said, they do not buy more XRP with it. They put it to work in some capacity to be able to generate returns in a short duration in order to be able to pay back the interest they owe Ripple and keep the difference. Let's see here. We already did that one. I think I got through everything, at least as far down as I was going to go. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. I'm going to answer 2 more, and then we're going to wrap it up tonight. Again, if I missed your super chat, I'm sorry. Please email it to us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io or via DM on another social media platform. Tanisha, 2020, she says, hey, Jake, love your lives. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you. She says, if I am ready to add assets to my LLC, how would I do that? My LLC is done. I didn't include the assets during the setup. So I don't know if you worked with us or not. If you worked with us, then we'll walk you through that process. We have a full SOP, step-by-step process that we provide everybody to be able to transfer their assets into the LLC. But I will tell you how. When you draft your operating agreement, it should have all the provisions that you need in there for distributions and all the other stuff that you would need for an operating agreement. It should also have some considerations around digital assets. You should structure it as a holding company that manages alternative investments with a sleeve for digital assets. Again, you should have, how you're going to orchestrate security around those digital assets and how you're going to manage them, all listed in your operating agreement. But separate of that, to be able to move the assets in there, you would want to do that through the capital contributions page. It's going to have 4 columns on that page. You're going to list the wallet address, the asset, whatever that is, XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever it is, the amount of the asset, and then your basis, whatever you bought that asset at. And then you're going to go get that notarized, or you could use a DocuSign. As long as there's a timestamp of when it was executed, will hold up in court. So that is the way to do it. If you need to watch this back in order to do it yourself, or again, if you want to work with us, we help everybody do that. You can just go to app@digitalascensiongroup.com, and we walk you through the whole process. We do the corporate veil or the creditor maintenance to make sure that everything's filed with meeting minutes and board resolutions and all the other fun stuff that you need to do for an actual corporation. You can't just say you're doing these things. It doesn't actually have the creditor protection or the things that you need. If you filed the LLC yourself, you likely don't have the anonymity. You need somebody else to be a sponsor, and you need to reuse the registered agent's address when filing the LLC. Otherwise, it's going to be your name and your address on there, which is publicly available for people to figure out who is associated with that corporate company. When you do the renewal, a lot of people are like, well, I can renew it myself. You can't. You're going to put your name on there. You're going to be listed. You're going to be associated with the LLC. You're going to lose your anonymity. So work with an attorney if you don't work with us to make sure this is done the right way, to make sure that everything's structured and put together so that you're not losing out on the benefits or the whole reason that you originally set up the LLC. Semper Fi, Marine, how are you, sir? He says, thank you for your service, by the way. He says, hey, XRP Master Jake, do you think F-Assets version 1.3 will cause XRP to disappear off exchanges faster because of ease of use? No, I don't. And it's nothing to say anything against Flare or what they're doing. I think what they're doing is fantastic. I just think that most people find it very complicated to use DeFi. And for that reason, it won't see the adoption until it's easily accessible by the masses. And again, like, we want to implement that at scale inside of the applications that we have. I know that there's exchanges that you guys probably know, like, and love, that are also working on that, that operate a Fireblocks instance. Zalman Wallet is also trying to figure that out. But I don't think that, that application in particular is going to drive the demand. I'm very confident that it's going to be the ETFs, tons of volume there, rotation out of Bitcoin into the ETFs for XRP, and then also the exchanges themselves needing XRP to replace Tether for liquidity in a liquidity crisis. And then also, driving the value up for back-end settlement of the stock market for people there to be able to de-risk, or institutions to be able to de-risk. Brandon, he says, non-crypto related, what does the world look like post-price appreciation, UBI, AI revolution, etc.? I'm bullish on mankind. Hundreds of years of innovation crunched into decades. First non-9 to 5 gen is alive right now, in my opinion. Man, okay. Oh, this is a good one to end on. I appreciate the question. I've had a lot of philosophical conversations over time about my outlook on things, and it's a bit dystopian in comparison to what most people would prefer. People that are super libertarian, which I am, by the way. Like, there are certain ways that I would like society to operate. I just don't think that that's the outcome that we're going to see. I think we're moving toward a technocracy. If you haven't ever heard that term before, I would go look it up. I think that is the way that the government in the U.S. is going to move, and globally also. I think we'll have technocratic nations that form over the next 5 to 10 years. And our entire society will completely be on chain and be data-driven. And potentially the value transfer and the way that that's disseminated to people through high universal basic income will happen. The reason that will be possible is the value that's generated in the GDP growth that we will have will no longer be capped per capita or per person. You will have humanoid robots. You will have AI agents that can work 24/7, 365, never get sick, never take time off, don't have to sleep, and you can spin them up. It doesn't take 9 months to have a new baby. You can spin up another AI agent just like that. So the agentic economy is going to be exponential and infinite. It will completely uncap growth in GDP. And with that additional value being created in society and the deflationary pressures of that, you can imagine how much cheaper things will get to produce. Technology is inherently deflationary. Things should be getting cheaper over time as we have technological advancements. Unfortunately, the Fed has been in a position to be able to print enough money to be able to offset that. Plus 2% is their goal. So they're effectively printing 9 to 10% more money per year. And that's why M2 money supply is climbing so quickly. It's also a ripple effect, without the lack of a better term, of technological advancement that we've seen over the past 20, 30 years since the invention of the internet. if you have huge deflationary pressure and you need, to be able to bridge the gap for people that don't have a vocation anymore because they've been displaced because of UI or AI, excuse me, you're going to need universal basic income. And you would actually be able to print money in opposition to that in order to be able to hold price stability across an economy if you could see all the transactions moving across an economy and all of that was happening on chain. The reason that the Soviet Union failed, and again, I'm not an advocate for socialism, I'm just explaining my thesis here. And that is an analogy that I've used because, they failed because they couldn't allocate resources appropriately across the economy. There's always discrepancies that happen in an economy, and in a capitalistic society, people find those discrepancies and then they arbitrage them back down. Just like you've seen, Bitcoin traded at multiple prices across all the exchanges, and now it's very tight. You can't arbitrage it like Sam Bankman did early on. So, in an AI world, those things will revert to the mean much faster. There won't be as much emotion or volatility in markets. Things should continue up and to the right for an extended period of time, which is actually beneficial. But the pace of innovation will also pick up exponentially. So, there'll be entire industries that, spring up over a 2 to 3 year period, companies worth billions, hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars in a very short period of time. And they'll be completely disintermediated by a new technology that comes out of the left field that they didn't even see coming. It's going to be wild. My analogy for that is Netflix and Blockbuster. You watch Blockbuster do that over a 30 or 40 year period. They had the opportunity to buy Netflix for $50 million. They didn't do it. They added more candy to the checkout lines. And now they've closed their first and last store last year in 2025. So, all of this is happening very quickly. If you are not leveraging AI in some capacity, looking to build AI agents, automate things within your life, create efficiencies, generate value in society, people that will win. And they will be the biggest winners that we've ever seen, even more so than the internet or really anything else, personal brands, it doesn't matter. If you have AI agents working around the clock for you, doing things, building websites, creating copy, marketing things, allocating marketing spend, making decisions on behalf of your business based on guide rules and frameworks that you've generated for them, you can run a fully automated business. Within the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see, I think, multiple trillion-dollar companies that have like 3 to 5 people working at them, which is wild. Tether is the largest or the most profitable company in the world per capita. They have about 100 people that work for the organization, and they make about $20 billion per year. So that's, a lot of money per employee is what that means. And I think that's only going to get greater over time. So the people that are taking advantage of this technology and understand it and are using it, they're going to do exceptionally well. Everybody else is going to be okay. You'll be just fine. Even if you are displaced in your job, you'll have universal basic income that'll cover your survival needs. Now, there may be some discretion over how you get to spend that because it's going to be doled out to you. But for the most part, I think people will be okay. And I think we're going to move into a renaissance period. I don't view it as a bad thing. I think if people didn't have to work multiple 9 to 5s in order to be able to just cover their bills and make ends meet, they could direct their attention and resources and, time toward passion that they have. How many fantastic artists or singers or creatives are out there that have no time to work on their passion because all they can do is work in order to be able to pay their bills? I think we'll move into a period of time where you can chase those things. You can create that value because that's what AI can't do. It doesn't have, it can make artwork and do some different stuff, but your ability to be creative and think critically through things and be able to, create value in society, AI is going to be a tool that helps amplify that at a greater scale than you could alone, but it won't be able to do it for you. And so that's why I think, again, people will be able to create exceptionally more value in society than they have in the past using these technologies, and it's going to be awesome. But at the same time, it is very scary for those that, are going to be displaced or later in life and don't want to learn or have the time to learn this stuff. I think there's going to be a big crash in the stock market and other markets globally. I think there'll be a complete repricing. But on the other side of that, I think we'll V-bottom out of there, and I think we'll have sustained growth for pretty much the rest of the time that we're around here. So that's my outlook. Great question. Again, if you want to work with us on the estate planning or taxes or insurance or all the other fun stuff that we have, you can go to digitalascensiongroup.com. If you want the wealth management specifically, that's still digitalwealthpartners.net, soon to be rebranded DAG Wealth. Insurance, Xure Legacy, XURE legacy.com, soon to be rebranded DAG Insurance. And then again, the mastermind. Again, if you want to be part of a cool community, more in real life events than any other community, and want to leave a legacy and create value in society, highly recommend you join the group. Try it out. Go to beyondbroke.com, use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, #1, and then MO like Mary Oscar gets you the first month for $2 there in the group. With that, I'm going to wrap it. I hope you guys have a wonderful Monday night, a wonderful week, and we'll see you on the next one.